I have come to understand that the phrase, "this too shall pass," is so perfect for anything. At least I've come to find. And it's not dwelling on the negative. It's finding a way to control whatever you can control to change the situation that you're in.
Okay, welcome back, or welcome to the Finding Mastery podcast. I'm Michael Gervais, and by trade and training, I'm a sport and performance psychologist, as well as the co-founder of Compete to Create. And the whole idea behind these conversations is to sit down with people who are extraordinary. Extraordinary in the way that they think, extraordinary in what they do, but more importantly in these conversations is to better understand how they've organized their inner life. What do they do to make sense of themselves, to make sense of events, and how do they use their mind to excel in life? And excelling in life is not winning necessarily. Excelling in life is living a life of flourishing, of fulfillment, of purpose and meaning, and be connected, and doing it all in the same time, at least for these conversations, in rugged and high stakes and high performing environments. Okay, this week's conversation is with Kelley O'Hara, and she plays soccer for both the U.S. women's national team and the Utah Royals FC. As a member of the United States women's national team, she's won 2 World Cups and an Olympic gold medal. And in fact, she's one of 3 players on the national team that played every minute for the U.S. in the Olympic Games in 2012. I mean, how epic is that? To contribute in a way where you play every moment. And then prior to that, she attended Stanford University, where she won the Herman Trophy in 2009. And that's awarded to folks who are the top in the US, top male, top female college players across the nation. So she understands what it means, how to do it. And that's really what this conversation is about. We cover so much in this conversation. And we get into resiliency and equality and inner drive, authenticity, and impact. And when I think about the challenge that's happening across the planet, but certainly in the United States, that we're currently facing right now, those 5 principles, those are significant now. Resilience and equality, authenticity, inner drive, and impact. I mean, those are big time. Kelley's just a tremendous role model for the next generation. And I can't wait for you to learn more from her. And before we dive in, I want to talk about nutrition for just a second. If you are a longtime listener or community member here at Finding Mastery, you might remember that we had Precision Nutrition as one of our partners here. And they're flat out the industry leader in nutrition science and behavioral change. And I've turned to them time and time again, and I'm not the only one. I mean, they earned that position in the marketplace for a reason. And they've transformed over 100,000 people, including folks top in the field like U.S. champ Sloane Stephens and UFC legend Georges St. Pierre, as well as serving companies like Apple and Nike and Equinox. And right now, this is what's really cool. Precision Nutrition is giving Finding Mastery listeners 50% off their incredible definitive guide to science and practice of macros. So what does that mean? You got micronutrients and macronutrients. Macronutrients are the big stuff that you get on your plate. And so often I see people so geeked out or talking about micronutrients, which are important, but missing the macros. So let's start with the big stuff, the big rocks to get in the container, if you will. And they're giving us 50% off for that. So this resource is not available to the general public, and that's what makes it special. If you want to recalibrate your diet or change your body composition, this definitive guide is legit now. And it covers everything you need to know about balancing protein and carbs and fats to increase performance, or maybe to lose weight if you want to. I mean, no matter what diet you follow, that's what they're working to get after. So go to precisionnutrition.com/finding mastery to get 50% off their definitive guide to macros. And that's only for Finding Mastery listeners now. And also, in case you missed it, Last week, I announced something really fun about a project that I've been working on for a long time. It's the release of my new Audible original. It's called Compete to Create, and I co-authored it with Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll. And it's set to launch on July 9th. And I'd be honored. I'd be massively honored if you'd pre-order it at audible.com/compete to create. And with that, let's jump right into this week's conversation with Kelley O'Hara. Kelley, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All things considered, it's a really intense, electrified, charged, emotionally charged time. And in many ways, I'm doing really well. It's hard to say that out loud because I know that there's so many people that are really suffering.
Yeah.
And, the joy in my life right now is that I'm at home and I'm stable and no one in my family has COVID. And I've been passionate about justice for a long time. And uncertain times are kind of right in my wheelhouse. So for that, I feel grateful and I'm excited about the work ahead for all of us. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so that's me talking a lot, and this is this is meant to be more about you. So really, what is it like to be you right now?
Oh man. I feel like that's a slightly loaded question. Where I'm back in Utah. So I play for the Royals FC, which is the club here in Salt Lake City, which is part of NWSL. And we're in the build up training period to our, I guess you could call it mini season, tournament style season, which we're going to play in Utah in July. So I've just been getting back into training, getting back on the field, working through, body, making sure things are working right, feeling like, oh, can I play soccer again? That sort of thing. And then also juggling all the things off the field, which obviously, like you said, there's a lot happening right now in the world. So just trying to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. So I'm good, but it doesn't come with that. The good doesn't come with a lot of added stress from different things.
Yeah, and you understand the equality, the justice narrative.
Yeah.
You've lived it, you fought for it. And really, when I ask that question, like, how are you doing? I understand like where you are and what you're doing, like good narrative there. But what is it like to be you?
Well, I feel like I wear a lot of hats. Athlete, partner, daughter, sister, friend, teammate, coworker, representative of a group of players for national team in terms of our PA. So it's kind of like, I feel like I'm trying to make sure everyone's okay because I think that's just in my nature. So that I think is what adds a lot of stress because at no point is everyone going to be okay. And you have to understand that, but then you have to just figure out ways that you can help and impact where you can, but also understand that you have to just handle things and try to make things the best they can be, but know that it's never going to be perfect.
That is the balance, isn't it? Where did that come from for you? That idea that I'm going to take on a lot and I'm going to do it primarily in the service of others / I want to make sure that people are okay. There's a slight, 2% difference between those, right? And if we're not thoughtful about it, one of them is like mission-minded for the betterment of humanity, and the other one is like codependency, which my happiness depends on their happiness. And when they're not happy, then I get myself knotted up. And so which side do you fall on? And then where does it come from for you?
Well, I would say that I haven't always had this role. I think that I've come to step into it more as a veteran player, seen a lot, done a lot, been involved with a lot. And so I think that experience has led me to the place of like, I've been through what you're going through, and I'm going to try to help you however I can. But I also think that, like you said, is it codependency or is it like mission driven? And for me, I've just seen that the impact that we can make individually on people and then as a collective is so important. So I think there's obviously like, I think I'd be lying to say there isn't a little bit of codependency. I think we all have this, like, I want you to be happy because if you're happy, then I'll be happy. But at the same time, I try to remember that everyone's not going to be happy all the time. And that's just a fact of life. But if you can try to improve for the collective, like just focus on that. You got to stay focused on that, I think.
What was it like growing up? Because you learned something about how humans work and how potential works. You learned that at a young age, and then in the family, sometimes it's not good messaging. It's unhealthy messaging. And actually, it's probably a little bit of good and a little bit of not good, right? Like there's that balance with our first families. But I want to get a sense of that foundational stuff. And then maybe it was there, or where did you come to learn that other people's wellness is really important?
I think that in my growing up, like in my childhood, the way my parents raised me was, you need to, like, we're not going to be helicopter parents. We just expect you to be your best. And I think that's what kind of has molded me into the person that I am.
Right there, though, that's a really strong message. We're not going to be overly involved, but we expect you to be your best.
Oh yeah, like mom and dad, they still tell this story. So I have an older sister, younger brother, and I think I was maybe in middle school. Sister was high school. She's 2 years older than me, or 16 months older than me. Brother's 2.5 years younger than me. So we're all very close in age. And my parents, it was the beginning of a school year, and they were like, all right, we expect you guys all to get A's. And that was just the end of their statement. And my sister was like, well, B's are average, so why can't we just get B's? And my parents were like, well, you're not average. She was like, but that's not fair. And it's like, and from that, it was like, that's what we expect. And you guys need to go do that. And like I said, they weren't helicopter parents. They just do your homework, get good grades, reach your potential. And like I said, I think that shaped me a lot in who I am today, because it's not a place, it's coming from like me.
Ooh, that's a really powerful thought, which is it's not coming. So your drive is not coming from an external source. It's coming from an internal place, which your parents watered that seed early by a consistency of the message. Like, is this your best?
Yeah. And again, I think I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot through my 20s. And that was something that I learned. I say, they instilled that in me, that your drive is going to come from within, and you need to just live up to your potential, and we're not going to micromanage. And they did that in sports too. And I think that, again, really affected me as a kid. They basically said, do something because you love it. If you don't love it, find something you do love. And I've held true to that my whole life. And this idea of being self-motivated, like you said, they watered that. But I think that I didn't come to fully appreciate it and understand it until like probably mid 20s. Like I had kind of an awakening at the 2015 World Cup. And that since then I was like, wow, I kind of always knew that, but then it reaffirmed what I think I knew in the back of my head, which was like, external factors are going to come and go. And if you're looking for validation from external factors, if you're looking for motivation from external factors, you're going to be hard pressed to find it at times. Therefore, you need to figure out how you find that within yourself, because you're always going to have you, and you're always going to have your internal dialogue and your internal drive. And So that's something that it's kind of developed over the years.
What led to that breakthrough?
Yeah. So at the 2015 World Cup, through my professional career, graduated 2010, 2012 or 2011, went to the World Cup as like the last player on the roster. Lindsay Tarpley got hurt. I got added. Didn't expect to play. I played for 15 minutes total the tournament. I was fine with that. I just wanted to be a cheerleader part of it. 2012 rolls around, play every minute of every game of that tournament as an outside back, which I had been a forward all my life. And then 2015 rolls around and I'm probably third or fourth on the depth chart of outside backs. And I didn't see the field until the quarterfinals, I think. And I struggled a lot. Like that was probably one of the hardest months of my life mentally and emotionally, because I was at this pinnacle of where I wanted to be in my career, but I wasn't fulfilling what I wanted it to look like, which was to be on the field playing and participating and impacting the team that way. But I did a lot of soul searching in those couple weeks and realized like, I can't expect the coach to give me an explanation of why I'm not playing, why I haven't seen the field. I can't expect, and it's not to say I didn't lean on certain teammates, which I did, but I kind of had this reckoning within myself of like, you have to self-motivate and you have to go out to practice every single day and play like it's a World Cup final. So one, you're prepared, and two, like you're on fire. Like again, you're prepared and you want it. So, and I ended up getting to start the quarterfinals. I ended up going to the semifinals, ended up going to the finals. And I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't had this internal fire that just got burning bigger and bigger and pushed me to show that I was like ready and willing and locked in regardless of my hierarchy on the depth chart.
Okay. So the clarity was that I want to I love how you said, I want to play, I want to participate, and I want to impact. Like that was what you were pursuing, right? And so, okay. So then you weren't getting that. It wasn't happening. And so there's this little mini crisis, right? Okay. Was it an identity crisis, or was it just like, I'm not getting what I want, damn it? Or was it an identity thing? Like, who am I without this?
I've definitely gone through the identity crisis, and I don't think that was a time it was an identity crisis. It was more so like, I really wanted to go to Jill, who was our head coach at the time, and say, why am I not playing? And I had to reel it back in and say, this is not the time and place to ask the head coach who's trying to win a World Cup why you're not playing. You're not playing because you're not in the picture. She doesn't think that you're ready, or, there's probably a number of reasons.
Just now, you didn't want to say you weren't good enough, huh? You couldn't say it, could you?
I mean, that's the reality. Like, I was good enough.
But but you couldn't say it right now, could you? You couldn't even say, like, you wanted to say that, but you couldn't even let it come out of your mouth.
Yes, because I think that at that point I was good enough, and there had been times in my career that I wasn't. And I think that, and I recognize that, and I acknowledge those moments, because I wasn't where I needed to be to play at the level that I was potentially going to be playing at. But in that moment, I was like, I know I'm good enough. I know what I have to offer, and I'm going to show it in the only format that I have, which is practicing. And I went out to every single practice and just was a crazy person, was just on fire, because I was like, I'm going to show you that when you look down that bench, you know that you can count on me, because I'm locked in. Even though I'm not playing right now, you can see it in practice.
Oof. Feels good to even recount. I feel like I measure, you wouldn't know this, Kelley, but I measure daily success by how many times my hair stands up, because it's that intersection between the big awe. It's like the expression of awe, like, like, wow. And it's also at the singularity of like, I'm right there in it as best I can with those types of moments. So, all right. So is that the conversation that you had? Is that literally, because so often, Kelley, people talk about like theoretical stuff, and they it's almost like a vulnerability refusal to talk about the actual internal narrative, which it's that internal narrative bounced up against the challenge ahead that really is the inner game, right? And so if you don't have awareness and you don't have a sense of the challenge or your internal skills, the external challenge and then the internal skills, what are we doing? We're just kind of robots or something. So is that what it sounded like in your head? Like, I'm gonna frick watch.
Yeah.
Here I go. Like, it was like that, right?
Yeah, it was, there was a bit of self-pity that happened. You know, it was like, oh, like game one goes on, you don't get in. Game two happens, you don't get subbed in. And you're like, oh, bummer. Maybe I'll start, maybe I'll get subbed in third game. Third game happens, you don't, and you're like, dang, I'm like, this is the world stage that you live for, that you train your career for, and I'm not even, like, I'm here, but it's almost as if I'm not here. And that's not to discount like who I am as a teammate, cheering people on the bench, and I was trying to be that as much as possible, but it was very much so like I want to be on that field and I'm not. And it was changing self-pity and like pouting. I tried to do that, you know, away from the team alone, because I didn't want to affect them and how they felt, because at the end of the day, we're all going to win a World Cup if we win a World Cup. But it was changing that to be like, how do I change this specific moment? How do I get out of this?
Was that your question? That was your investigation? This is my state of pity. How do I change it?
I think it was like, yeah, this is the reality I found myself in. How do I change it? Because I don't want this moment to pass me by because I was too bummed out or, you know, oh, woe is me, to make something happen. Because I would have regretted it. Even if I didn't get the chances that I got, I think I would have still hopefully been proud of the way that I carried myself in that moment.
Okay, let's take a quick break to talk about Vuori. Vuori makes incredibly soft, like really incredibly soft, incredibly comfortable, versatile clothing. And their clothes can be used for just about any activity like running and training and yoga or whatever it might be, but it's also great for lounging and just hanging out. And seriously, I don't know how they've made it. It's ridiculously soft, and it's different than any other clothes that I wear. It's any other gear that I have. It's got a really unique softness to it. And I don't know another way to describe it. I mean, they got the right amount of kind of flex in their clothes, and this, again, the softness. It's awesome. I love what they're doing. And so I've been digging their Banks short. So when you punch over to the website, check out the Banks short. And so whether you're looking for men's gear or women's gear, they've got you covered. I highly recommend Vuori. And they have a special offer for Finding Mastery listeners, 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/finding mastery. Okay, so how do you spell it? VUORI clothing.com/finding mastery. And not only do you get 20% off your first purchase, but you also enjoy free shipping on any US orders over $75. You also get free returns in there. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Masterclass. Masterclass, they let you learn from the best with exclusive access to online classes taught by masters of craft. Okay, I just got done listening to Robin Roberts, the newscaster, and she was walking through her approach to being an authentic communicator and her relationship between listening and exploring and how she goes about it. And it's no doubt that at the center of her approach is vulnerability, and then being able to listen deeply, put words, and to contextualize it, and then to explore further with other people. It's awesome. I think you'll really enjoy it. So whether you're interested in writing or business or conversations or cooking or sports, you know, there's a masterclass there for you. And the classes, they're shot beautifully. Their instructor roster is stacked. Folks like Bob Iger, Ron Howard, Serena Williams, Frank Gehry, Jimmy Chin, Howard Schultz, Werner Herzog, one of my favorites. I mean, literally, it's stacked. And as a Finding Mastery listener, you get 15% off the annual All Access Pass. That includes unlimited access to every masterclass. So go to masterclass.com/finding mastery. That's masterclass.com/finding mastery for 15% off the annual All Access Pass. Now, let's jump right back into this conversation. Are you an introvert or an extroverted processor?
Oh, um, I've talked to a sports psychologist before, and I told him I was an introvert, and he was like, "No, you're not." He's like, "You're an introvert," and I was like, "What's that?" And it's both. It's being able to do both and gain energy and clarity both ways.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what you want. That's what we as humans want. It's a bit like a light switch. We want to be introverted when it calls for it and extroverted when it calls for it, and know how to toggle between the two. And the idea is like, how do you gather energy best? Is it by processing internally, writing, listening, kind of intimacy, if you will? Or is it by, do you gather energy from being around others, talking, being in the mix, and that's how you think best and gather energy? So if you had to say my true preference is,
It really is both. For instance, during that World Cup, I spent a lot of time in the moments that I could, I would go away, go for a long walk, go into, like, I remember sitting by this lake for an hour, reading this book about the history of like existence and that sort of thing. And that I need that. I need alone time. I need quiet time. But I also do gain a lot from conversation and, you know, bouncing my thoughts and my feelings and my opinions off of somebody else, and, you know, and having that back and forth, because your internal dialogue is always, it's just you know, and you can kind of add to it by reading and listening and learning. But then at the end of the day, I think that you do have to have some external conversations.
do you journal?
At times I journal.
Yeah, I get the sense of, like, I would say probably just from our 30 minutes here is that you've got more than normal introverted processing, more than normal, meaning more than most. And so, you know, which is in and of itself, it's a bit rare, you know, because most people are extroverted, not because it's a true preference, but because our world in Western culture tends to value that. And so people get kind of nudged into that direction and build that skill, but it might not be their true preference. Okay, enough of that.
You introverted?
Did you ask him which one am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first examined this part of my life, I was like, oh, extroverted.
Okay.
And then as I double click, triple click, thought more about it, I'm much more introverted than I would have thought. And I prefer deep, intimate conversations rather than bouncing around, you know, on the surface from,
Same.
Yeah, you would too. Yeah. So it's not lost that we're engaging in a format where it's deep and intimate, you know, as opposed to, like, I don't know, something else that's more extroverted. Although I'm not great at journaling, you know, which is a more introverted process.
I have journaled in the past, and it's funny, when I was a kid, I was like, ooh, I don't want to write these things down, because, like, what if I back on this and I'm so embarrassed, or like somebody sees this or that sort of thing, you know? So I think that I'm like, you know, Google Doc is probably the best option, because it's
secure. Oh, because that's not being monitored at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I feel like there were so many times that you felt so passionately about something, or you were so wound up about something, and then you think, I mean, even now you look back 6 months later and you're like, that was just that shouldn't have been a stressful moment. So I think that I sometimes steer away from it, but I have found, and I actually journaled a lot. I journal a lot during major tournaments, because it is important.
I find the same. Yeah. During events, I want to understand and catalog and organize and make sense. Yeah. And it archives it in a cool way too. Okay. So, what does your heart want?
Oh gosh. What does my heart want? I think my heart wants people to feel loved, people to feel accepted, people to be open-minded, and for me to be a person that helps to create that type of world in society. And people to feel valued. Like, at the end of the day, everyone just wants to be loved, right? And I think that that's the most important thing.
So you've taken a non-traditional path for intimacy and love. And can you walk through what that's been like for you this is a little bit of a double loaded question, which is, there's great inequity. There's a fight right now for justice and equality, and it's a necessary fight. And so you've lived those shoes. And you're also white. And so as a white female that has lived the path of marginalization in Western culture from an intimate relationship standpoint, how is that for you?
I mean, it's an interesting thing because I feel like I don't know how to put it. It's not that I don't feel like I'm different. Like I don't look at myself and think like, oh, I'm super different from anyone else, because I have felt so accepted. And I don't know. I don't see myself as, like, you say non-traditional, and it is, dating a female. But I guess I don't know. I've gotten to a place where I don't worry about that. Maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So there's some freedom. It sounds like there's some freedom in there, but also, as I was asking the question, when I got done with the question, I said, I wonder if my question was offensive, because it's not meant to be, and I wondered if I tripped into something that got you triggered around the conversation as well.
No, I didn't find it offensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about my personal relationship that much. I mean, and it's out of respect for my partner, who isn't in the public eye. So, and I think that actually is what's difficult, is that people think that I'm not, like, comfortable or super in love or proud of, like, who I am. Because I am, and I'm really thankful that I've come to that place. But like I said, I don't talk about it a lot because of protecting her. And so I guess I haven't, I don't know. I don't find your question offensive,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're super clear. You're like, yeah, it's just a part I don't talk about much, but I really love who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm in love.
Yeah.
And how do you relate as the white woman piece to being, alive right now in one, radical time in history, and two, a really important time, how is it to be a white woman right now?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like I've learned so much just in the past couple weeks, and that has been so enlightening, and I'm so thankful. Obviously, how we got to this moment in time is horrific, but the fact that, and I'm hopeful that the fact that I have had such, like, an enlightening experience and an awakening, and this realization of, oh my gosh, this still impacts so many people, and so many people, like, were numb or just are not aware of it, that sort of thing, or just like, oh, this is in the past. It's not. This is real, and this is scary, and this is something that has to change. So for me, as, like, a white person, that's what I've been kind of sorting through, trying to educate, trying to listen, trying to understand. And it's like twofold. So there's that, but then I'm a female, and I've been fighting for gender equality for years now. And so I think that I don't want to say I have a unique perspective on, like, what the Black community is going through. I don't want that to sound insensitive. I have a perspective on inequality that I wouldn't have if I wasn't in the position that I am with the national team. and being a female athlete. And it's made me realize like systemic sexism is real. Therefore, like I know systemic racism is real because I've had that experience. And a lot of people are like, oh no, it's, they don't see from my perspective on the world that I live in. And I don't see from certain people's perspective of the world that they live in. However, because I live in a place where I have had to fight for equality, I feel like, again, I said uniquely, I have a unique perspective. I feel like I can be empathetic, and and it gives me an understanding of like, this is so important. And I will never understand how you feel, but I understand that you are feeling something, and like, this is worth fighting for.
That's right. Okay. So I want to do two things. I want to get connected to your ancestry. I want to know who are the ancestors. Maybe you know them or don't know them, but who are the ancestors? Because let me pause. You're a really unique person.
Isn't everyone really unique?
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that, but like, you hold a unique position in the zeitgeist of human potential for sure. But what are the influences, the ancestral influences, whether you know these people or not, that occupy space for you?
Well, I'm primarily British and Irish, according to, I think it was either Ancestry or there's another one. I think it was Ancestry. But then, have a smattering across from Europe. Really, both of my parents are super athletic. They came from very athletic backgrounds. My mom's mom grew up in the coal mines in West Virginia. There's 8 of them. For them, it was education was super important. That's what my mother's great-grandmother impressed upon them. Like, the way you get out of this is education. And then I'm a middle child. I don't know if that's part of it too.
Yeah, no, that's all for sure contextual. And then how about the folks that are no longer with us, like the people you carry with you, that whether they are thought leaders, spiritual leaders, pure political leaders, like if there was a lineage of how you think and how you feel, who has influenced that for you?
That is actually part of my ancestry.
Maybe not. Like, there's how there's like a coaching tree, and maybe you were coached by them, but their coach was maybe influenced by a second degree coach, and somehow you're connected to them. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking more like, and I don't want to kind of drive you down a lane, but who are the thought leaders, spiritual leaders, dead or alive, that have influenced you? And because ancestry is a big deal for Eastern thinking. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit bigger than Western thinking. And so I just want to open that up a little bit to see kind of where that past generation influences your current way of life.
I think for me, it's been female athletes and the trails that they have blazed. I looked up to the 99ers big time, and I watched what they were doing, and I wanted to do that and to be that. These aren't political or spiritual or thought leaders, but in my mind, sports is culture. So, for instance, for the first time, my recollection of first watching the Olympics is in '96. The gymnastics team, Carrie Strug, and hurting her ankle, and she pushed through and she landed it and she won. And so it was just, that was my first instance of seeing females on the TV representing their country doing a sport. And then the 99ers happened. And so I think those influenced me as a kid to be like, oh, I'm going to do that one day. Like, I remember watching the Olympics and thinking, I'll I'll be in the Olympics. And I didn't at that point didn't know it would be for soccer. I just thought that I would be there for something. So I think that even though there weren't female athletes back then didn't get a lot of visibility or recognition, when I saw it, I connected to that, and that impacted me in a big way.
Okay, let's take a quick little break here to talk about Miro. And one of the things I miss from being in an office is whiteboards. I'm a visual thinker, and I like to think about systems where I can see it in front of me, and then I can drill down and drill down. Like, that's kind of how I use a whiteboard, and they're solving it. So working remotely, it's got its benefits, it's got its challenges. And one of those challenges is collaborating, with folks and capturing that richness of what we're trying to create and solve problems with. And so that's where Miro steps in. They're an online whiteboard that brings teams and ideas together, and it's like an anytime, anywhere thing. So they've designed an infinite canvas it's just designed for brainstorming, making mock-ups and organizing files and, really managing complex problems. And then you can add docs and spreadsheets and sticky notes and all that other important information directly up to Miro. So you always have a single real-time collaboration hub. And they also integrate with all the platforms you already use, like Google Drive or Dropbox or Jira, Slack, all that stuff. You can even video chat with coworkers without ever leaving Miro. So start collaborating for free. How about that? When you sign up for an account at miro.com/mastery. And I just want to say, it's an important note that typically our link ends in /finding mastery, but this one ends in just the word mastery. So it's Miro, MIRO.com/mastery to sign up for a free account with unlimited team members. Again, Miro.com/mastery. Get on with the systems thinking and get on with that imagery. I love it. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens they are a whole food supplement that, in my best estimation, and I've been digging into this stuff for a while, it's a complete, they've really rung the bell on what they put into their product. And it's designed to cover the daily nutritional needs of highly active, get after it people. I know that's you. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening, or if you're part of the Finding Mastery community, I know that's you. And by now, I hope you've had the chance to try it out. But as a quick reminder, Athletic Greens recommends that the way that you can optimize their product is to consume it, first thing in the morning. And so on an empty stomach with a glass of water. And that's actually what I do. And the thinking is that on an empty stomach, your body's just primed to absorb whatever you give it after your nighttime fast. So for me, it's just like wake up, get a glass of water, throw in a tablespoon of the good stuff, stir it, shake it, 15, 20 seconds, something like that, down it, and I'm done. And so for those of you who haven't tried it out yet, it's athleticgreens.com/finding mastery. And they've got an amazing offer for our community, for Finding Mastery listeners, a free 20-count individual pack. It's valued at $99 with any purchase. Okay, again, punch over to athleticgreens.com/finding mastery to take them up on the offer. And now let's jump right back into our conversation. If we open it up and zoom right into a moment on the world stage, Olympics or World Cup, that was memorable, and I'd love to go inside that experience with you and understand what was that like for you. If you pick a moment and we zoom into it, what is the moment that comes to mind?
Does it have to be a good moment, or can
you go anywhere you want. Yeah, for sure.
I would zoom in to 2011 World Cup. And like I said, I was brought in last minute as, an alternate, but then was added to the roster because Lindsay Tarpley got hurt. And Pia, the coach at the time, said, "You're not going to play. Like, you're here for a practice player. You're here to be a cheerleader." And I said, "You got it. I can be that person." And
this was happening like in the locker room? Was this on the field?
This was probably at the hotel in a meeting before we left for the World Cup. And so kind of have that assumption of this is how my tournament's going to go. This is what I'm going to be. I'm not going to see the field. This is what I'm going to use for. And it's our third game in the group stage. We're playing Sweden. We're already through to the next round, but we want to beat Sweden so that we can win our group and come out top seed. And we were losing, I think 2-0, maybe it was 1-0. 15 minutes left. Dawn Scott, who is our sports scientist, like conditioning coach at the time, walks down the bench, and her job was to tell people who was going in to go warm up. And she gets to me and she tells me to go warm up. And I just am like looking around, thinking you're not talking to me. Like, you're definitely, you messed up. You need to go check, make sure you have the right player. Tells me to go.
I got a different memo. Yeah.
Not part of the game plan. I go warm up. The whole time I feel like I'm going to pass out. I get to the center.
Wait. What's the passing out part?
Because I'm so nervous.
What were you saying to yourself?
I'm not excited. I'm nervous.
And what was that dialogue like?
Holy shit, don't pass out before you go into a game. That would be really embarrassing.
So you're fighting such lightheadedness that you really were saying, keep my stuff together here. Don't pass out.
Yes, I was standing at the halfway line, about to sub in. My heart rate was through the roof. I could barely breathe. And I was like, just make sure that the circle doesn't close in and you pass it. Like, the camera's going to be on you. You're subbing into a game. If you collapse right here, that would be really bad. That was going through my head before I went into the game.
What was happening that it was such a big moment for you, that your heart was pounding out of your chest as if it was a threat, like a massive threat to you? Like, what was the framing?
Certainly a fight or flight feeling. It was because I wasn't prepared. I had only probably had 7 or 8 caps, which are appearances with the national team. And it was a high stakes game. Obviously the team you could feel the stress because we were losing, and I was being asked to go help. And I was like, I'm not the person that needs to be going out there to help. And so it was purely based on inexperience and not being ready. And I went into the game. I played the worst 15 minutes of probably my professional career. I don't pass out. I just remember yelling. Ali Krieger was playing, I think right back, and I was going in as a right mid. And so I remember giving her some instructions, explaining what they wanted us to do. So I was trying to stay, with it. And I tried to do as best I could. Like I said, did not do well.
What got you through it?
I didn't get through it. Like, it was very, very bad. I looked very much so out of my element. But I think once you get into the game, you just start going, and you can't pass out, because like when you're standing there waiting to go in, I had the potential to pass out because I was like locked up. But once you start moving, yes, I was still nervous. Yes, I was completely out of my element, but, and felt very overwhelmed, but I just kept going. But then after the game, I am in doping control because I get picked to have to be drug tested. And teammate sits down and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "That was the biggest epic fail of my life." And she just starts laughing, and we have this lighthearted moment. And I just looked at her. I'm like, "No, it's not funny. My career could be over after this." And go through the drug testing, and we're about to leave, and we walk out the door. To the right were steps to go up to the field. If you go left, we would go to the vans and go back to the hotel. And I said, when we left, I said, "Hey, can I take a second?" And I walked up the steps and stood at the top of the steps on the field. The stadium was empty. It was quiet. The lights were off, and it was just the soccer field. And I took a moment and just talked to myself and basically said, "This is a soccer field. What you know how to play soccer. You've been doing it since you were 4. Doesn't matter the stage. Doesn't matter who's in the stands, how many people are watching on TV, what the stakes are. It's a soccer game, and you know how to play soccer. So don't doubt that." And filed that away in the memory bank, and then went from there. And I feel like I learned a very big lesson that day.
That is what an agreement with yourself is about.
True.
Right? And the agreement is if I put it in my language, you know how to do this. Don't ever turn your back on your history, right? Like, don't ever abandon your experiences, because that's what you did. You abandoned your experiences because there was lots of people watching.
Because it was high stakes.
Yeah, perceived, right? Like it's a total relative term, stakes. Right? And so you perceived it to be a defining moment. And I'm not sure I know what defining moments are. And I hear ESPN talk about it and Fox Sports. I hear them talk about a defining game, defining play, defining moment. And I'm just calling BS on it. Like, and one of the things I think I would imagine you might agree with that. I don't know. I don't want to walk you down a path, but I called one of our mutual friends, Paul Winsper, the Under Armour global director for high performance. I said, "Who's Kelley to you?" And he said, "Resilient."
That's nice.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And so this is a moment of all the places you could have taken this conversation. You went to a moment that called upon resiliency. And so if you were to walk through like the mechanics of being resilient, because you've had injuries you've battled through, you've had difficult, challenging moments. What goes into being, well, first of all, before we go, what goes into it, how do you think about being resilient?
Well, just to go back on you saying that you asked for a moment, I took you to a moment that I had to be resilient, and I asked, can it be good? Does it need to be good, or can it be bad? For me, I think that, and I know that the toughest, hardest, most trying moments are the ones that are the most impactful. Like, iron sharpens iron. You don't get to become the best, or you don't get to a level of success without having to go through obstacles and figure out a way to respond to failure, because like that's just part of life. And it's so, and I think that goes back to resiliency. It's like resiliency isn't, oh, I'm not going to mess up. I'm going to try to be perfect. It's, I'm going to come up against obstacles, failures, hard times. And it's not those things. It's how I respond to those things that create the person I am.
So is resiliency for you the framing, or like, okay, I want to figure some stuff out. So to me, to walk that path, there's going to be alligator pits that haven't been explored yet. There's going to be cliffs that are kind of falling apart on the edges of the path, and I need to navigate that. Like, is it framing? Like, I want to go into those places, challenges and setbacks or whatever? Or is it more about, is it more about the skills that you use to navigate the footing underneath of you, at the side of the cliff falling apart? Like, is it more skill, or is it framing, or how do you think about resiliency in that way?
I think resiliency is more the skill set. Courage is the ability to go into a difficult situation, and the two go hand in hand.
So what are the skills that you use when you're in the midst of something difficult or challenging? And we're talking about psychological skills at this point.
So I don't know if this is a skill. This might not seem very intellectual, but I have come to understand that the phrase "this too shall pass" is so perfect for anything. At least I've come to find. And it's not dwelling on the negative. It's finding a way to control whatever you can control to change the situation that you're in.
Yeah, so it's a mouthful. You talked about optimism, you talked about acceptance, and you're talking about being on time with the moving present moment. So this too shall pass, meaning this conversation is going to pass. Something that's emotionally difficult is going to pass. Joy passes, and each moment unfolds like one in front of the other. And if we're not on time with it, we miss life. And so this too shall pass. So if it's going to pass, it's not about like shedding it. It's like being in it to learn from it, whether it's the joy or the sorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like we are all presented with situations and environments for a reason. And it's like, what can I learn from this? What can I gain from this? How can I, again, use this to make a better future for myself, for the world, for my teammates? You know, I've thought about that a lot lately. That's kind of.
So that begs a question for me is like, in your life, when you think about your life, what are you pursuing?
I mean, I'm pursuing impact. I think I'm pursuing impact. Like, in my mind, I'm in a position, whether I like it or not, that a lot of people look up to me, and a lot of people are inspired by what I do, what my teammates do. And in the beginning of my career, people would say that, be like, oh, you're so inspiring, you know, like what you do helps so many people. And I'd kind of brush it off and say, I'm just playing soccer. Like, I'm just doing what I love. And it took me a while to understand that there's a responsibility that comes with it. And it's true. Like, you are in a position where you have the ability to impact people. You have the ability to inspire people. And for me, it's making sure that I don't let that go to waste. And I think there's so many different ways that you can use your platform for good. So it's making sure that I do that, making sure that I impact individuals, communities, teams, society, the world for the better.
Sounds like that's your purpose. Like that's, you know, your pursuit and your purpose line up, you know, which is impact for humanity, for others.
But I think I would hope that everybody feels that way, because I think,
no, no.
Like, oh, you know, you have a platform because you have a large social media following. Like, yes, that's true. But I wish that more people understood the power that they have as individuals, whether they're in the public eye or they're not, that like your interactions on a day-to-day basis and how you choose to live your life impacts the people around you. And it's a ripple effect. Like that is the world that we live in. And I understand that I am in a spot that I can do really cool things and really special things, and create a lot of change, hopefully. But I also think that everyone should feel that empowerment, and even if it's just in simple interactions with their friends or their family or, you know, their classmates, that sort of thing. I think that I wish more people felt that way.
Yeah, let's hope. And there's this, so you wouldn't know this, but I just released a book, and yeah, so I'm super jacked about it. It's called Compete to Create.
Cool.
But I talk about this in there, which is you are the pebble in the pond. Whatever size pond is, like that's different for all people, but you're the pebble in the pond. And here's an idea that I talk about that I'd like to roll out with you is, so the first ripple is like your first community, your intimate circle. The second, as it goes, you know, are other folks. There's an echo that takes place though, that pulls people back. And it's a fear. It's a fear of what people might be thinking about you. And that echo, that reverberation that comes back, it sometimes stops us at the first, or not even maybe the first ripple that we could get to. And can you talk about how you navigate other people's opinions about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about in the beginning how you're never going to please everyone. Like it's just a reality of life. And we had a national team call with Melinda Gates, and I helped to moderate it and asked a couple questions. And one of my questions was like, how do you have the ability, you have the resources to do so much in the world. How do you stay focused on your mission? And she said, and kind of not drown out, but again, stay focused. And she said that early on, Warren Buffett told her, you're going to have to define your bullseye. And I was like, oh, I wrote it down. I got so excited. I was like, that's such an awesome phrase, define your bullseye. And that's kind of been, I've been thinking about that a lot. And it's like, what is my bullseye? And obviously, like I said, I want to leave this world better than I found it. I want to leave the national team better than I found it. I want to leave, this life better than I found it, this society. But it's how do you do that? And like, what are your passions? And I think that you do have to define your bullseye, because there's so many things happening in the world that it's impossible to fix all of them. But if you are mission driven and you have a bullseye, you can continue to just focus on that. You can feel like you are having impact. And I don't know. I think that sometimes it's like, oh, you want to see the fruits of your labor. You want to see this change, but you might not see it for a while. And I also think that's important to remember, and that change isn't necessarily going to happen overnight. But if you are putting in the work and you're putting the time and you're consciously making an effort to do the right thing and continue to focus on your bullseye and head towards that, I think it's easier to not worry about the criticism and the critique.
I was wondering if you're going to come back around, because I asked the question about other people's opinions, and you went, yeah. And then you went right into mission and bullseye. And I was like, I see exactly what you're doing. It's like you just supplant the attentional space that you could allocate your resources to, either what people think about you or the mission. And you're saying, no, mission, know it, live it, pivot, adjust, like stay the course on it. It's not temporary, it's like a long game.
Yeah.
And then you said, that's how you do it. So like, I was wondering if you're going to come back and close it, because what you did is, it makes sense. It makes exact sense on how you organize your life. Okay. So let's go a couple quick hits here. I want to honor your time. It all comes down to
staying true to yourself.
You like that you said that, didn't you? You really like that. I love your grin. You're like, yeah, that's it.
Because I think that so many people want you to be so many things and to do it the way they want you to do it, especially in the position that I'm in. But at the end of the day, like, you have to respect the fact that I am who I am, and I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. And that is me being true to myself. And I would hope that everyone would be happy for that, would applaud that. Because I think if everyone stays true to themselves, like, that's, you don't want somebody being someone else. Be yourself. There's only you.
Yeah, that is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? Stay true to yourself. But to do that, you've got to know yourself. And then you've got to know the core principles that are going to help guide you. And then I think you need mental skills to be able to navigate the deep waters, the dark territories.
And it's not to say that I have it all figured out. I know I don't.
No. Right. Yeah, that would be a joke.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This conversation would probably end it at minute 3. Hey, I've got all the answers. Right? Okay, so success is.
Ooh, gosh. How do I define success? There's a simple way to do it, and that's the wins and losses column. And then there's a life way to do it, and that's like, how am I internally, and how am I, again, creating change, impacting for the better, making the people around me better, which will then ripple to everything else, hopefully.
And then the key to success for you is, or a key?
I think a key to success for me is not taking life too seriously and enjoying the journey and laughing and smiling. Like, I'm a pretty happy person. yeah, I think that's you gotta be able to find the bright spots in life. So
Have you done that in this conversation?
I mean, have we laughed? I feel like we've laughed.
No, yeah, I have, like you have too. Like, does this feel like is this what it looks like when Kelley's not taking herself too seriously?
I'm definitely taking myself seriously because I think that this is a serious, a lot of what we've talked about is a serious
It's
conversation.
pretty serious. Yeah, yeah.
But I think with me, it's a balance. It's like, I like to smile. I like to be happy. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be the hard conversations, the like, ooh, how do I explain this? Or, the friction of internal, feelings or, external feelings. But yeah, maybe, yeah, I guess a little bit.
Yeah, I think that this insight holds true for me. Like, if you don't have joy, peace, and happiness, you really don't have much to offer
No,
anybody.
oh, true. It's so true.
The intellect will not get us there.
No, I love that you said that. I agree. I think that sums me up because I can try to be as intellectual as possible, but at the end of the day, it's like this, life is about relationships, community, and joy. Like, joy is very different than happiness though. And I think that joy is what drives me. I feel like I'm a very joyful individual, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do that because I know that that's not sometimes possible for a lot of people. But yeah, joy is so important in life.
What is a word that comes up right now as a word that you're totally keyed into? Call it a favorite word, whatever, but it's just a word that comes up that you're like, that's a good word for me. I like this word right now.
Right now, it's action. Because I feel like we've talked about, so much is happening in the world right now, so important. But it's nothing, nothing changes without action. We can talk all we want, and talking and conversation, educating, listening is so important. And I'm not discounting that, but figuring out ways to take actionable steps to create change is, in my mind, the way that I can be the most useful.
I love it. Talk about Tame the Beast.
Yeah. Kind of pairs perfectly with what we just talked about. So Tame the Beast, grooming company that I got on board with last fall. I have zero concept of time anymore. But it was primarily a male focused grooming company. They wanted to start to transition more to unisex and brought me on board to help with that. Our core values is creating this. One, we want to revolutionize the shower experience by creating sustainable, eco-friendly options and making people rethink about the way that they purchase and stock their showers and their bathrooms and that sort of thing. And then on top of it, creating products that are high quality and, they're intense in the sense of like, they can make you feel good in your own skin. So a big draw for me was the sustainability focus, the eco-friendly direction that they were taking the company. I studied science, technology, and society in school with a focus in environmental engineering. So sustainability has always been really important to me, but this was an opportunity to actually be part of creating the future I want to see in businesses, which is like making decisions based on sustainability, eco-friendly products, that sort of thing. So it's been awesome. And then on top of it, it's the unisex part, which is that in the grooming space, you have grooming and beauty, you have sometimes, it's a product is specifically marketed to women, product is specifically marketed to men. And in working with Tame the Beast, I've come to understand that like you might have almost the exact same product, but the female marketed product is upcharged or uppriced, multiple X amount. And it's just another instance of like, they call it the pink tax basically. And so I was like, I care about making products that are quality, that people want to use and they work, and not charging $200 for a face lotion that's actually $5. It costs $5 to make. Like I've been part of the research and development process where I'll send them products that I've liked in the past, and they get to, they kind of break it down and look into them, and they're like, well, this is the ingredient profile, and it's actually $5. And I'm like, well, I'm an idiot for buying that.
Oh my God. Awesome. Okay. And tamethebeast.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a great vibe to it. A lot of energy behind, the brand tone to it.
Totally.
And then, okay. So where can people follow you? Where can they be part of your life pursuit and mission? Where do you want to send them?
They can follow me on Instagram at Kelley O'Hara. They can follow me on Twitter. I don't think I've been on Twitter. I think I deleted Twitter during COVID because I was just like, it's too much. I don't need to be reading this every day. So I haven't been on Twitter for a bit, but might get back on eventually. I am starting a podcast. I'm hosting a podcast for Just Women Sports, which is a digital first media company that is covering Just Women Sports. And going to be hosting a podcast that is kind of going to be like a how I built this, how I got here type of vibe, explaining and giving you insight and a kind of behind the scenes look at how the biggest names in sports have gotten to the level and the success that they have. And I've started recording with that, and it's been really fun. I am a little bit out of my element, but I like a good challenge, and I've really enjoyed the conversations, and I've become even more of a sports fan from it. So I'm hoping people do.
Yeah, that'll be great. And is it up now? Is it on all the players?
Be launching. I think we're going to probably launch early July.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you. What a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Okay, so all the best to you. So Instagram, podcast, and Tame the Beast.
Yeah, there you go.